Hello, my name is Wendy and I'm a clinical psychologist. Like you, I'm facing the COVID crisis. Unlike you, I'm walking a path that I've never walked before. I'm inviting you to join me as we look at the many challenges and obstacles that we might have to face. As a clinical psychologist, I might be able to provide you with some answers and some way of negotiating the many difficulties. In 1983, I watched my first Comrades Marathon. I was ill, I was sick in bed with flu, and I switched on the television merely to try and distract me from my aches and pains. I think Comrades Marathon has been something that changed my life. It was a decision on that day that I wanted to do that. This was on my bucket list, and I would certainly do it at least once before I died. Comrades Marathon, for those who don't know, is about 90 kilometers. It goes from city to city, it's undulating, it takes in hills, and it's one of the most difficult races in the country, maybe even in the world. In the year 2000, I lined up at the start of my first Comrades. It was many years, but it was years of struggle, of failure, of getting up and trying again. I'm not a natural runner, so for me, it was never about being in front. It was a matter of survival. I was always going to be one of those who was trying to beat the clock. Another aspect of Comrades is that there's a clock. You have to do the marathon in 12 hours. And if you have not completed in 12 hours, that's it. You have to try for the next year. I was quite lucky in that I got fit quite quickly. I've always found it quite easy to get fit. But staying on the road for hour after hour, staying on the road when your body is saying this is not a good idea, is something that I had to get used to, and I had to understand how to cope as an endurance runner. I started my first marathon with quite a lot of confidence. I'd up until then not really had too many problems. And it was in my first marathon that I faced the reality of hitting the wall. Hitting the wall is when you absolutely run out of petrol. Your energy, your glycogen levels, they are completely depleted, and you go from 1 minute feeling like $1 million to the next minute feeling as though every bone in your body is filled with lead. It is unbelievably painful, and it really does feel as though a ton of bricks has fallen right on you. I didn't manage to complete my first marathon, and every bit of training after that was done around either learning to run through the wall or learning to avoid the wall. But I realized that the one thing that would really stop me from running was the terror of the wall. As a clinical psychologist, I've recognized that often certain types of depression are like hitting the wall. People can one day feel buoyed by their jobs, their relationships. They feel as though life is good to them. And then suddenly, for no reason, they feel as though they can't get up in the morning. The COVID crisis is probably going to impact many people in terms of hitting the wall emotionally, feeling as though they can't go on, feeling as though everything has just become too much. You can't take away the wall, it's there. We can't take away COVID crisis, it's there. We can't take the reality of certain very genuine concerns and say it's nothing. It's real and it's there. But what we can do is use techniques to help us through the wall and help us to prevent the wall as being as bad as it could be. I'm going to pass on 3 things that I found very useful, and I found that they really did help me to run through the wall, to get through the wall, And I found that it's not only in running that they've been helpful, but it's also been helpful in other areas of life. The one tip is on what not to do, and the other things are on what to do. The first thing that I did realize is that if I thought of the rest of the race, my legs got heavier. If I thought of the rest of the race, I just couldn't go on. I would think 22 kilometers to go, and that was just too much for me. So it became really important to try to focus on a way on which not to think of the end, but rather just focus on the moment, focus on one step at a time. Quite a difficult thing about the COVID crisis is that we don't know where the end is, and we don't know what the end is going to be. But focusing on what you can do for the day must be a priority. You don't know how this is going to turn out, but you can plan your day. Your day has some control. The rest, it's not in your hands. So spending too much time on focusing what's not in your control is just going to deplete you. It's going to take away every bit of energy. The other tip is about what to do in the moment. I found when I was running that one of the things that helped me more than anything else was to look around and find someone who was worse off than I was, someone who was in worse pain, someone who might have been a novice, or someone who was going through a really bad spell. And if I gave them assistance, I found that not only did it lighten my burden, but it was also being useful to someone else. So in this COVID crisis, I'm going to say to you, in those moments where you feel you just can't go on, reach out, look for someone who might be struggling, look for a way in which you can be useful to that person. During the COVID crisis, there's so many people who are feeling lost and alone. Reaching out is not only about yourself, but it's about making someone else's burden easier. I think, and studies have shown, that people who are altruistic in their approach are generally more socially well balanced. They do have better optimism. And so you might find that this is one of the best ways in which to get you through a day where you just want to give up. The third tip is simply about self-care. I found that when I hit the wall, and if I hit it badly, I could invariably look at what had been happening in the last week or last few days, and I could pretty much pinpoint where I'd gone wrong. It wasn't in the race where I'd gone wrong. It was actually before the race. Had I been getting enough sleep? Had I been eating healthy foods? Had I been mixing with people who were invigorating and regenerating? Were there problems at work? These were all issues that were adding to the ability to deal on the day with the race. I think every single day, do one act of self-care. If you are not sleeping, it's important to find a way in which to get more sleep. Focus on diet. Focus on people who enrich you, who encourage you, who are going to bring positive things into your life. Next week, I'm going to be looking at living in the moment and a few practical tips that are going to help you to deal with this particular problem. So, from me, this is Wendy. If you like this video, please subscribe, press the like button, and share it. Thank you very much. Bye.